Hey pianists, I hope you guys are all doing great. This week we are going to be working on Not Autumn Leaves. We'll be working on a new tune, and this is a jazz standard by Kenny Dorham, the great trumpeter, and it's called Blue Bossa. So I I think at this point we've learned our two fives in major and our two fives in minor. And so at this point, I'm not going to go through the voice leading in as much detail. But if you have questions about that voice leading, please don't hesitate to ask. Please feel free and shoot me an email, and we can set up a virtual office hour. But I think we've been covering this stuff, and I think I don't need to go through it in quite as much detail. We're basically going to be doing for the rest of this term. We're going to be utilizing the materials we've already learned in just the context of some new repertoire, and then when we hit next term, we'll be learning some new ways to apply what we've already learned. This is going to be pretty similar to what you've been doing. You're going to play the melody in the right hand and two-note voicings in the left hand. And then you're also going to comp through it with four notes in the right hand and a bass line that's using roots and fifths of the chord changes. And I'm also going to go through some bossa rhythmic comping patterns, or a bossa rhythmic comping pattern that you can start to incorporate if you're feeling comfortable with it. Again, I'm including some handouts for you to fill in that might help you as you work through, what voicings to play. That said, when you go to record these things, when you're practicing these things and when you're making the video of these things, don't look at the handout, look at the lead sheet. Okay, pianists, so now we're going to go through the assignment for this week. So the first part of the assignment is to video record yourself playing through Blue Bossa, with the melody in your right hand and two-note voicings in your left hand. And we'll be using, in the left hand, just like we've been doing all year, root and third, alternating with root and seventh. And you can start with either. You can start in the left hand with root and seventh, or you can start in the left hand with root and third. I chose to start with root and third. So I'm just going to play through it because this is basically what we've been doing all year. Any questions you have, though, please feel free and shoot me an email about it. So here we go. 1, 2, 3. You'll notice that after that when we got to the ninth bar of the form, that E flat minor chord, I went straight from root and third in C minor to also root and third on the E flat minor, and that's because it ends up putting me in the same kind of inversion when we get to back into the key of C minor. But I certainly didn't have to do that. So you can do it however works for you, but basically you want to be alternating between root and third and root and seventh throughout the form. Okay, the next component of the assignment is playing through blue bossa with 4-note voicings in the right hand and a root and fifth bass line. So I chose to start kind of low with, there's the root in my left hand. I chose to start with the third on bottom in my right hand. And, it's a little low, but it, I think, sounds really nice. That said, if you wanted, you could easily take it to a different inversion. If you were to just take your bottom note up an octave, that's a nice sound. Or even you can do one more inversion. So take that G up an octave. And that also sounds really nice. So this is, instead of going E flat, G, A, D, it's going A, D, E flat, G. And those both sound great. But this is where I chose to stick it. I'm just gonna again play through it. We're gonna be voice leading the way we have all year. So we've got that roots and in the bass line we're using roots and fifths. In the right hand we basically have our thirds alternating with sevenths and sevenths alternating with thirds, and then we have that ninth relationship with the 13th and 5th. So I'm just going to play through it in its basic form, just with whole notes in the right hand. Okay, and that last G7 altered is the turnaround. You wouldn't play it at the end of the song. That's just to when you are doing the repeat. Now, one other thing I want to go over. So far, most of the times we've been comping through tunes, they've been in kind of a 2-beat swing feel. And I want to go through just a basic bossa comping pattern. You're not required to do this. It is fine for you to just play whole notes in your right hand. But if you're looking to get a little more rhythmic, this is a really nice bossa pattern. So with the bossa is a rhythm that comes from Brazil. So it's an Afro-Brazilian rhythm. And with Brazilian music, it's all about the offbeats. There's a style of Brazilian music called choro, which is all offbeats. So with all of the different Brazilian grooves, there's the kind of interesting thing to consider is which beats are emphasized on the beat and which beats are emphasized off the beat. So a really standard kind of bossa pattern starts with 2 on beats, right? And then we've got 2 off beats in the first measure. It's typically a 2-bar pattern. So in the first measure, it's usually 2 beats on and then 2 beats off. So if we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, bop, 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 bop. Okay, now in the second measure, it would generally be kind of the opposite of that. So we might do 2 beats off and then 2 beats on. So that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, bop, ba, da, bop. Now, for piano, we simplify things sometimes. So I might skip the second note of that measure and just play on the and of 1 and then beats 3 and 4. So a 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, putting them together, we've got a 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's a basic. That is one bossa pattern. There are many. We could do a whole course on Brazilian rhythm and still just scratch the surface. There is a great book that I found really useful called Inside the Brazilian Rhythm Section. So that goes through a number of the different grooves. It goes through samba and choro and marcho rancho and frevo and all kinds of really cool grooves, and bossa. So that's a great book. It's by, let's see, Cliff Corman and Nelson Faria, if I remember, and it comes with some nice, well-recorded backing tracks, so you can practice the examples, and it goes into sort of the history of the grooves and where they come from, like where specifically in Brazil, some of the anyway, it's very cool. So I'm just going to play through the form of blue bossa with a traditional bossa comp in case that's something you are interested in exploring. So here it is. A 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. And a couple things I'll just point out. You'll notice the bass line, I kept it just half notes, and that is actually very typical of how the Brazilian songs are played in Brazil. In the United States, you'll hear more of these like dotted quarter notes and an eighth note, and kind of everything, and that's how a lot of times these tunes are played in the United States. But in Brazil, you'll hear more of the half notes, and I tend to like the half notes better. It tends to feel a little lighter, and it's certainly, as a pianist, when I go to play it, it's much easier, and just lighter, and it frees me up a little bit more. So I'm in the left hand, I'm just keeping the half notes going. And in the right hand, you'll notice when we have a chord change in the middle of the pattern, so like when we go from the D minor 7 flat 5 to the G7 altered, you'll notice that I'm actually anticipating the G7 altered in the right hand. Now, it doesn't have to be that way, but that is probably more typical. So I'm going to play G7. Right? Did you hear I kind of hit the G7 in the right hand before my left hand hit the bass note? I'll do it one more time. Okay. All right. So have fun with this, and please hit me up with your questions. And I'm excited to hear your performances. Have a fun week.